Screams echoed through the long corridors of the castle. Men shouted that they had to search everything and find the girl. Footsteps quickly passed her hiding place. Drops of cold sweat slowly trickled down the blonde's face. The girl tried her best not to give away her presence with her breath. She prayed to God if he existed, and begged him to make sure she was not found. There was a distinct click behind the girl. Steps were quickly approaching her. The silhouette of a huge guy hung over her fragile body. The stranger gently touched her silky hair and asked if he was an overnight guest or an illegal passenger. The blonde shuddered all over. She asked who the stranger was. The girl couldn't understand what Prince Khalid was doing on the ship. The blonde noticed that he and Veronica hadn't seen each other for a long time. With a trembling voice, the girl proved to the prince that this was an absurd misunderstanding. Khalid said that she did not have to make excuses. His Majesty asked what the blonde had forgotten on his ship. Veronica's mind was filled with desperate thoughts. The blonde couldn't believe she had boarded the wrong ship. The girl's body began to tremble violently. The blonde grinned and said it was too late. He asked if the girl wanted to tell him anything. The guy asked her if she was sure she hadn't made a mistake with the ship. The ship suddenly moved, forcing the girl to grab the guy's muscular torso to stay on her feet. Cold sweat began to roll down Veronica's face in small drops. The girl realized that she had to leave immediately. The blonde didn't know what had happened because the ship had moved too suddenly. The prince casually grabbed her fragile hand. With panic in her blue eyes, Veronica tried to figure out when he had managed to use the immobilizing poison. The girl had no other explanation for why she couldn't move. The prince lifted her up and kissed her tenderly. Khalid suddenly threw the girl down on a luxurious carpet and began to tenderly kiss her lips, not paying attention to the man who entered. The blonde pressed Veronica firmly to the floor and hung over her with his massive torso. The girl's legs began to tremble. Clouds were gathering rapidly over the girl's head. Veronica Hillstead was declared a traitor and sentenced to death. The jury began to fuss. The judge asked if the blonde wanted to say anything before she died. Veronica asked hesitantly about her last words. The rain was getting stronger and heavy drops were pouring down on the brunette's head. The supreme judge asked what the girl's last words would be. Veronica sat on her knees, cold rain falling on her fragile body. She looked into the man's eyes with disdain. Veronica smiled and asked when love became a sin. The green-eyed blonde shuddered, afraid that she might reveal his secret. The girl's amethyst eyes sparkled in the semi-darkness, and raindrops slowly trickled down her face. Veronica claimed that she had loved the prince with all her heart, but he had betrayed her. The jury quickly began to discuss this news. People were sure that the brunette had gone completely mad because the count had not even arrived for the trial. People were sure that the count was ashamed of such a daughter. The judge waved his hand wearily and ordered the girl to be taken away. Smiling, Veronica wished her lover happiness. The girl stood in handcuffs, and 2 guards took her by the arm. With tears in her eyes, she looked at the blonde, whose emerald eyes did not express a drop of regret. As Veronica was led away, she smiled madly. The girl was sure that she would be much happier. The convict was asked to move quickly. Soon she was roughly thrown onto the floor in a small cell. The metal door clicked shut. Veronica smiled and asked if she had played well enough. The girl let down her luxurious black hair that fell over her shoulders. The self-haired man noticed that the girl's work was inimitable. Veronica held out her white hand and reminded him that the terms of the contract had been fulfilled. The brunette explained that her father had to pay her. The man coldly responded negatively. The girl suddenly became bolder, because she knew that there was no longer any Veronica Hillstead. The little legs quickly ran in an unknown direction. The girl greedily tore off small pieces of bread with her teeth. She was a commoner and did not know who her real father was. Veronica winced as her bread fell to the floor. The girl's mother sold her because of debts as soon as she turned 10. Entering the room, the brunette asked if the baby's name was Lisely. The woman asked what the brunette could do. She noticed that the girl was quite beautiful. The brunette grabbed the baby roughly by the face, examining her as if she were an ordinary commodity. The woman was sure that when the girl grew up, her beauty would help. Lisely assured Milady that she was smart and learned everything quite quickly. Clenching her little fist tightly, the girl asked to consider another use for her. The brunette asked not to look at her as a living commodity. The brunette laughed and was surprised, since it was the first time someone had asked her to find another use. The woman asked if the orphan knew what they were doing. The woman grinned and explained that every crime needed a witness, and sometimes they hired special actors. She assured that the little girl could become one of those in the future. that she would learn and she would play each role perfectly. The brunette explained that the girl would have to become an heiress, who was considered dead or an illegitimate child or a maid. Later, the little girl's acting skills would become ideal after learning some skills. Soon, many mercenaries and cleansers began to appear among her colleagues. Actors were especially popular for such shady dealings. Smiling, the brunette promised that the little girl would not regret it if she went with her. One day, the woman reported that she had received a very strange order. She claimed that the customer needed a girl who could play the role of his daughter for several years. The brunette quickly realized that this was for revenge or a scam. Leslie asked again what exactly she would have to do if she became a daughter for a while. Shrugging her shoulders, the woman assured that the girl's reward would be equal to her salary for 10 years. Leslie shuddered, imagining the amount of money she would hold in her hands after the end of this deal. The brunette realized how difficult this task would be. Smiling, the lady asked if the offer was too tempting. The woman explained that the actress would be able to pay off her mother's debt with this money without any problems. Leslie realized that if she fulfilled this order, she would no longer have to play someone else's role. There were still doubts in the girl's soul. In the brunette's soul, there was a glimmer of hope to finally become free. The girl resolutely gave her consent. Leslie understood her goal perfectly: to help the prince for 6 years and make him a worthy heir. The brunette knew that her client had to find a suitable aristocrat who would become the guy's bride. The girl knew that later she would be forced to suddenly disappear. The brunette understood that every country should know her under the name Veronica. The girl realized that despite the fact that her entry into high society was postponed due to illness, she had to conquer everyone at her first appearance. Extending his hand, the blonde asked if Veronica would do him the honor of giving him her first dance. She resolutely extended her hand. The guests of the ball began to discuss the girl's appearance. A slight blush appeared on the brunette's face. Veronica reassured herself that everything was going according to their plan. Smiling, she promised to make the prince a king. Veronica noticed that her competitor was spinning under her feet. The blonde knew perfectly well that her father had found a sweet, innocent girl who was perfect for his majesty. Veronica pretended to be competing with the blonde as best she could. Everything went according to plan, because the prince chose the blonde over Veronica. The girl realized that she had to pretend to be blinded by jealousy and poison her rival. Thus, the most beautiful girl of high society became a real villain. The customers' expectations were true, and the poisoning failed, showing everyone that the prince and his entourage were always in danger. Covering his face with his hand, the count said that, to his great regret, he was unable to raise a worthy daughter. Everyone realized that the count would not be able to help in such a hopeless situation. 2 strong guys brought the brunette into the court. The girl assumed that her story would end there, but she returned. Looking at the girl, the brunette noticed that she had created a sea of trouble and returned to the prisoner carts. Laughing, Leslie asked what troubles she was talking about. The brunette asked if she had forgotten how talented she was. Leslie said that everything went as planned. The brunette asked again if the girl was sure of her own words. An elegant hand extended to Leslie a small piece of paper folded several times. The girl asked impatiently if it was some kind of gift. The brunette sighed heavily and said that the leaflet was a wanted poster. The woman told Leslie that she had been betrayed. The brunette was clutching a piece of paper tightly in her hands, shaking with fear. The boss assured her that the girl's client had done it. Leslie asked how this could have happened. The girl suggested that she might have made a mistake somewhere or gotten too carried away and interfered with the count's plans. The brunette realized that the man had acted meanly and wrongly. She remembered perfectly well the count's plan, that the prince had to climb to the very top. Leslie said that the customer, as he wanted, found a suitable bride for his majesty. The girl knew that according to the plan, the villain Veronica was supposed to appear and say that the prince would be only hers. The brunette was sure that this was supposed to be the perfect love story. This was originally intended. The actress knew that status could always be gained by marrying successfully. She just wanted to pay off her debts, and after a successful performance go to a place where no one knew her. The girl dreamed of living a quiet life, close to the seawater, enjoying every day. According to Leslie's plans, a happy ending was to await her after the deal was completed. Crumpling up the piece of paper with the terrible news, the brunette assured that she had done everything as the customer ordered. The actress still couldn't figure out what she had done wrong. Leslie was furious, because for the past few years she had done everything the customer ordered. The girl was furious that he had paid her back with only 10 million gold coins. The brunette noticed that her charge had gotten into the role too well. The woman assumed that this was what had frightened the Lord. The girl, breaking into a scream, explained that the brunette did not understand what she was talking about. Smiling, the mentor said that she could get twice as much money if she turned the girl in. The woman thanked the actress for such an incredible opportunity. Cold sweat was running down the brunette's face. Leslie asked if she was going to pay her a fee. The girl was furious that her mentor was going to just throw her out the door. With a cold voice, the boss assured that she realized all the injustice. But first of all, she was worried about herself. The girl's hands were clenched tightly with anger. She ran through the city streets with hysterical laughter. Earrings with precious stones sparkled on the fugitive's ears. The brunette advised her student to go to the port and save her life. The woman admitted that she was her favorite. The boss said that one day she would answer for all her actions. She advised the blonde to take care of her life. The girl was very grateful to that madam. Thanks to the help of her mentor, Leslie was able to disguise herself with magic. The brown-haired man was clutching a small knife tightly in his hand and was anticipating his future 10 million. With madness in his blue eyes, the guy said that he would die anyway and asked to let him earn it. Watching the madmen, the girl realized that this was exactly what she had expected. The blonde knew perfectly well that they had known no pity since childhood. The boys ran around the city streets, saying that they always get what they want. The team promised that sooner or later they would catch her. The boys promised to spend the money wisely. The actress could not believe that they were ready to send her to death, despite the fact that they had worked hand in hand for many years. The blonde realized that the Count had specifically declared her wanted so that he himself would remain white and fluffy. The girl's body trembled in the wind. The sea breeze blew her luxurious long hair. Leslie was outraged that the fool actually thought his plan would work. The boys ran around town wondering if the girl was stupid enough to think she could hide. The bounty hunters told her she had nowhere to run and asked her to just surrender. The blonde stood on the edge of the pier. The sea raged beneath her feet. Stormy waves crashed against a small ledge. The staff reported that the client was so dissatisfied with the girl's work that he declared her wanted. The blonde's gaze fell on the icy water. She dreamed of finally being free. Leslie clutched a small suitcase in her hands. The girl realized that she could not give up, because the freedom she had been striving for so long was very close. Raindrops fell quickly from the sky. A loud sound broke the sky. The hunters begged Leslie to come back. Trying to hide behind their hoods, the boys wondered why it started pouring so suddenly. The hunters assumed that the girl had jumped into the water. One of the guys said that in such weather they wouldn't even be able to find her body. The guy asked his friend to stop such conversations because 10 million were at stake. The brown-haired man asked if she really decided to die. The strong wind and wet clothes made the fugitive shiver violently. Leslie prayed that they would go away and mind their own business. Raising her head to the sky, the blonde noticed that the rain had almost stopped. The girl assumed that she was very lucky. Looking at the shawl decorated with a luxurious pattern and the suitcase with money, Leslie realized that she had lost everything she had. The girl knew that she was now a criminal who had betrayed her country. The blonde was horrified at the cost of her life. Her hands grasped the wooden side of the ship uncertainly. She realized that she had saved her life with great delay. Leslie assumed that this was most likely the ship that Madame had in mind. The blonde prayed that no one would notice her. The guy looked at the uninvited guest in surprise. The girl's heart began to pound wildly when he screamed. Hiding in the closet, the girl prayed to all the saints that she would not be found. The blonde asked whether she was an overnight guest or an illegal passenger. The events quickly moved back 2 years. The customer informed the girl that a delegation from the Kingdom of Iran would soon arrive. The man asked the actress to prepare herself properly for this. It was Earl Hallsteal, a client of Leslie. The corset was digging into the brunette's chest. Veronica could barely breathe in this garment. Hallsteal ordered the girl to pay special attention to Prince Khalid, hugging the Count from behind. The brunette asked why he was grumbling at his perfect daughter again. Veronica reported that the customer's work was unbearable. The girl noted that he demanded too much. The actress turned away and asked if she had ever let the Count down. Veronica said that she had enough errands for the day. Hallsteal explained that they needed to establish contact with the prince. The brunette explained that she knew it was necessary to improve trade relations with the West. The actress proudly promised that he would never miss such an opportunity. Veronica straightened her long silky hair to become even more attractive. The Count grinned and noted that his daughter was as perceptive as ever. The man insisted that she should be careful, as the enemy could always be stronger. At the ball, they discussed that the prince's ship was filled with gold. His Highness's delegation consisted of more than 100 people. The woman sighed, imagining how much treasure that ship had brought. The interlocutor coldly asked whether the woman had seen the prince with her own eyes. The brunette reported that His Majesty was very difficult to describe in words, because the guy's face and body were perfect. The man reported that His Majesty was heading their way and was magnificent as always. The mere appearance of the blonde could deprive people of all feelings. Noble ladies sighed dreamily, looking at the luxurious body of the guy, covering her grin with a fan that had luxurious black lace in the shape of flowers on it. The girl wondered if she would be able to get along with the guy. Veronica assured her father not to worry. She folded her fan and had a sly expression on her face. The prince noticed that the brunette looked like a puppy. The girl asked him in surprise what he had said. His Majesty explained that the girl was wagging her tail contentedly, as if she were a small puppy. Cold sweat was trickling down the blonde's cheek. Leslie had a bad feeling about this. His Majesty asked the girl what she had forgotten on his ship. She belatedly realized that it was Khalid's ship. The blonde, shaking all over, realized that she had gotten on the wrong ship. The blonde, hovering over her, asked if she wanted to tell him anything. Leslie realized that Madame had been too cruel to her. The prince asked if the girl was sure that she had entered the right room. The blonde knew she had to escape at any cost before the ship moved. Khalid grabbed her hand unceremoniously. The girl realized that he had guessed that she had a paralyzing poison under her fingernails. Leslie extended her tender lips to him and whispered that he asked for it. The door creaked open. Bowing, the blonde addressed His Highness. There was surprise in the green eyes, and the body trembled. Hearing extraneous sounds, the girl tried to understand what was happening. To her regret, the blonde could not resist the appearance of His Highness. Leslie did not like her current situation at all. One of the subjects remarked that they should be glad that the prince was feeling well. With cold beads of sweat on his cheek, the brown-haired man asked Mr. Simon if the girl had managed to escape. The blonde said that if they spotted a refugee, they should immediately throw her off the ship. Simon said that there was no room for any trash on their ship. The guy promised to check on His Highness a little later. The blonde realized that it was not worth going there and it was better to look for the fugitive. Getting up from the bed, the blonde turned to his subordinate. The prince's muscular body hung over Simon. Having bowed, the subject heard the order of His Majesty to stop the search. The prince reported that there were no strangers on the ship. Smiling, the boy said that they should prepare for departure. Khalid assured that he left everything to the boy. Leaning against the wall, the prince noticed that the girl had hit him twice. The blonde insisted that he understood why she had hit him the first time, but he considered the second time undeserved. Curled up in a ball, Leslie watched his every move carefully. His Majesty joked that if they were seen, they would think he wanted to take her by force. The girl noted with a trembling voice that he had tried to rape her. The crown prince looked down. The boy had come to Weldon on trade matters. The girl tried to calm herself down, as if everything that happened was only for the best. Leslie blushed and fell to her knees, insisting that she had the wrong ship. She begged the prince to pretend he had not seen her and to let her leave in peace. Smiling, Khalid asked if beating people was part of her daily routine. The handsome man was clearly interested in the girl. The prince smiled and asked how he could forget that she was a criminal. And with a satisfied face, he showed her the wanted poster. Covering her face, the blonde did not understand how the guy managed to recognize her through the disguise. The prince grinned and ordered the girl not to tell him the sad story. Khalid explained that they knew each other very well. The guy admitted that it was hard for him to forget their first meeting. The blonde recalled when she obediently wagged her tail like a submissive puppy. The girl froze in anticipation of a cruel punishment. Veronica realized with fear that up to this moment she had never deviated from the plan. The girl could not ignore such an insult. Khalid admitted that he was not very familiar with the customs and language of this country. Looking seriously at Veronica, the guy assured her that he wanted to point out her merits. The foreigner assumed that this sounded insulting. The brunette smiled falsely. Veronica noted that she was amazed at her knowledge of their language. The actress suggested that soon the prince would not need a translator. The brunette advised the guy to learn to read people's emotions. Approaching the girl, the brown-haired man suggested that it wasn't worth it. The girl coldly cut him off. If he thought that she was thirsty for his attention, then he was very much mistaken. Khalid shuddered at such words. Approaching the prince, the blonde assumed that there had been a misunderstanding. The girl's voice trembled and hatred was visible in her amber eyes. Luckily for the actress, the bride arrived in time and saved the situation. Thanks to the blonde, both parties were able to reach an agreement. The count noted that the work had been done beautifully. The customer asked Veronica to continue to treat the prince carelessly. The man said that it was necessary for the prince's bride to get closer to the blonde man. Veronica knew it wouldn't be difficult, since she hadn't made the best first impression. Every day the girl got more and more used to the role. The brunette said that the barbarian will remain a barbarian, even if he is hung with gold. Veronica grinned and asked the guy to look at himself from the outside. The actress asked if he was ashamed to appear at the banquet practically naked. The brunette wondered if he couldn't afford decent clothes. Veronica wondered if the prince liked looking like a barbarian. The girl would never have said something like that if she knew the guy a little better. Khalid noticed that the girl was not quiet at all. The guy roughly grabbed her earring with an unusual stone. The blonde squeezed the jewel tightly, causing it to sparkle. Lacey was disappointed because the magical artifact was very difficult to obtain. Wearing the stone took a lot of energy from the girl. Because of this, the actress played the role of Veronica using her real appearance. Scary thoughts flashed through the girl's head. She couldn't understand who the prince was and how he was able to notice her magical disguise. Lacey tried her best to use disguise to hide the fact that you were Veronica. The blonde couldn't understand how he could have exposed her. Khalid suggested that the refugee talk frankly. The blonde asked whether the girl was his night guest or a criminal on the run. The brunette grinned and asked what the prince thought of her. Throwing on a robe embroidered with gold threads, the guy assumed that she was a faithful dog that followed the orders of its owner. Khalid called the name, from which the amethyst eyes of the girl dimmed. Turning away, the brunette could not understand why he remembered the Prince of Weldon. His Majesty assumed that the guy had drawn the brunette into this scam. The brunette grinned and realized that he was thinking that she had become a criminal and climbed onto his ship because of the first prince. The blonde explained that she would easily go to the depths of hell if Prince Daniel so desired. Such a reaction was not surprising to Lacey. The foreigner asked if she was really ready to do something like that for that. Smiling, the brunette realized that her game was really convincing. The girl said that she was on the ship of her own free will. The brunette hoped that this trick would work. Khalid sternly asked him not to deny what had been said. The prince explained that he had seen very well what had been happening recently. The blonde man settled comfortably on a small sofa. Khalid asked what role the girl liked the most. The guy deftly twirled the golden goblet in his hands. He asked again whether the girl was a guest, a stowaway, or a loyal puppy. The girl assumed she was the infamous villain. Lacey explained that the guy could have chosen any role and she would have no problem playing it. The blonde asked the girl if everything that was happening to her was a game. With surprise in his eyes, Khalid asked if her endless love for the prince was fake. Lacey admitted that this was one of the wishes of her client, whose name she could not divulge. The girl hesitantly extended her hand and took a golden goblet decorated with a luxurious ornament. With genuine surprise in his amber eyes, the blonde asked if she had gone so far just to please the client. The brunette was amazed that the prince actually believed her. The girl explained that as long as she received the appropriate payment, she was ready to play any role. The prince asked if all the girl's actions were about money. The blonde took a sip of expensive wine from his glass. Khalid said that in the east of the Iran Empire, there was a small city called Surayev, which was surrounded by an endless desert. The prince said that there were 3 rooms in the city. The first was filled with gold, the second with silver, and the third with precious stones. The blonde said that Lacey could choose any of them. The girl asked if he wanted to book her as an actress. The brunette asked with distrust what role she would have to play. The prince reminded her that she had tried on the role of a villain and suggested playing the role of an exemplary and loving bride. The guy's eyes showed genuine pity. Khalid suggested the girl to play the one he would fall in love with at first sight. Gently lifting her tender face, he looked into her amethyst eyes. The prince explained that everyone who saw them would have to believe in her game. Smiling, the blonde man approached the girl's face. The guy asked if it was so difficult for her to answer that she continued to evade the answer. Taking her hand, Khalid confessed that he liked what she did earlier. The guy remembered that Veronica hugged him like that and kissed him. A barely noticeable smile appeared on the brunette's face. The prince reminded her that she had said that she could play any role. Raising her eyes, the girl agreed to play. Khalid squeezed her hand tightly. He said that in that case they would sail away immediately, and he kissed her gallantly. There was a bustle on board. The entire crew of the ship was preparing to sail to the Empire. Above the sails, a scattering of stars was visible. On the ship, a guy stood looking into the distance. He said that somehow everything was unexpected. Another approached him and said that there was no longer any reason to delay the departure. The blonde reported that His Majesty had found the bride he had been looking for so long. A smile appeared on the guy's face, because they had done everything they wanted. The assistant asked his colleague how he felt. The blonde, with sadness in his eyes, reminded that they had never been able to find the boy's little sister. Smiling, the brown-haired man said that he was completely fine. The muscular guy said that it was worth considering that there was no news from the girl, and suggested that she was not in Wesson. Laughing, he assured that what was more important was that they had a crown princess. The blonde said that he had another piece of news. The guy claimed that Lana had caught a spy. Shaden asked if the spy had been following them since they left Iran. The night guard suggested that she had lost her patience and was soon returning to the Empire. The blonde reported that the spy had tried to seduce the prince. The guard asked in horror what His Highness had said. The assistant sighed heavily and assumed that the guy knew what the prince was like. His Highness was not very interested in women, and the spy chose the most terrible way. The waves splashed against the sides of the ship. The brunette became wary because it seemed to her that everything was going too smoothly. Leslie was surprised that she hadn't even signed a contract and was already being treated so well. There was an expensive bottle of wine and a lot of food on the table in front of the girl. The brunette hesitantly asked if it was true that all the treats were intended for her. Leslie wondered if the treat had been laced with poison. She tried to convince herself that if she ate a little, nothing bad would happen. She speared the juicy steak with her fork. The girl was delighted with the taste of the food. Unfortunately, the brunette could not lose her vigilance. Leslie found it suspicious that the prince decided to set sail just as she was boarding. The girl did not know the reason why the ship sailed away without warning anyone. The brunette couldn't understand why the prince would take such a risk. Leslie realized that nothing happened for no reason. She looked at the juicy steak on the cutlery with disbelief. She knew that nothing had happened by itself. Entering the room, the prince asked if the guest liked the food. The actress reported with pleasure that the dishes were quite good. The girl asked if Khalid wanted to join in. Leslie said she had something she wanted to discuss with him. The brunette said she planned to get straight to the point. The girl openly stated that she suspected that the prince was hiding something. Leslie asked what exactly he was hiding before signing the contract. Khalid asked in surprise what she meant. The blonde took the glass and said that he had nothing to hide. The guy admitted that he had kept something quiet. After these words, the actress began to get very nervous. The prince poured expensive wine into a luxurious glass. Khalid said that the girl had been his goal from the very beginning. The blonde assured that what he so craved had come to him by itself. The prince explained that it was because of her that he had not planned to set sail so quickly. Khalid asked what was the point of delaying any longer now. The girl frantically grabbed the table knife from the table. The brunette asked with distrust whether he had planned to hire an actor in Fiore from the very beginning. There was genuine surprise on the guy's face. Leslie explained that he could have said so straight away. The brunette realized why the guy had been so careless even after he found out she was Veronica. The girl guessed that he had ordered her to be found and had sailed away immediately so that she would not change her mind. The brunette drank some more of the intoxicating drink. Looking down, Leslie realized everything. The girl was surprised that the prince was hunting for the actress who played Veronica. Leslie asked him again if he knew who she was all this time, and she wondered why he had forced her to admit it herself. The blonde asked in confusion how he could have known that. Leslie assumed that the guy himself initially knew about the eye under his nails, the magical disguise. The girl was disappointed, because she was the only one who received the magical artifact from Madame. Leslie was sure that it was her and the brunette's secret, and she was horrified that she had betrayed her when she became unnecessary. The brunette couldn't understand why. The girl considered herself a good actress. She was holding the table knife tightly, holding it behind her back. Until this moment, Leslie had been sure that Madame was one of those who kept her promises. The actress bowed her head and asked how much it cost the prince. Khalid noticed that the girl was talking like that, but he did something bad. Frowning, the brunette asked if her guesses were correct. Leslie realized that she had cost the guy a pretty penny. The brunette remembered that she had reached the port earlier than she had expected. The girl remembered that despite the fact that she had left unnoticed, they immediately chased after her, as if they had been waiting for her on purpose. The actress was sure that the guys only wanted the money that they had promised for her head. Now the girl realized that they were clearly trying to force her onto the ship. Khalid admitted that he felt a little awkward. The girl, breaking into a scream, asked if this was how such a situation was described in the Iran Empire. There was rage in her amethyst eyes. Khalid suggested that was what the incident was called. The actress said that in her homeland it was called being cheated. The prince asked if they were talking about the same thing. The blonde suggested that he could tell that they weren't. Leslie assumed that he was sure that he could boss her around because she was too polite. The brunette jumped up from her chair. The girl walked confidently towards the blonde. She stretched her soft, velvety hands to his neck. The brunette said that she saw right through him and kissed him tenderly. Her hands were shaking from the excitement that was in the air. The prince gripped the armrest tightly, enjoying the moment of the kiss. Luckily, her expectations were confirmed and the guy had an instant reaction. Khalid began to gently stroke her silky hair and kiss her tender lips. The actress was glad that the prince did not object when someone took the initiative. She noticed that he was not going to give up his superiority anyway. The prince held the actress tightly by the waist. The girl did not understand why her client was so good at kissing. The brunette's hands trembled with pleasure. Leslie clearly heard her heartbeat in her ears. Her cheeks were covered with a crimson blush. The girl understood that Khalid was thirsty for her. Leslie carefully placed the table knife on the table as she no longer felt any danger. The actress understood that she could take advantage of the guy's love. The prince asked what she wanted to tell him. The brunette turned away abruptly and asked why she suddenly had to answer his questions. Khalid couldn't help but laugh. Leslie said they should go back to discussing the contract. The girl knew she shouldn't get emotional. The prince asked again about the contract. The actress explained that since he hired her, it was a formality. Smiling, the brunette asked the prince not to forget that they were now collaborating. The setting sun painted the sky a warm pastel color. Seagulls hovered near the ship, hoping to get some food. Clouds of steam rose in the luxurious bathroom. Sitting in his jacuzzi, the blonde enjoyed the scent of rose petals floating in the water. Khalid thought about the contract. The blonde man was surprised and asked if His Highness was being completely serious. Simon reminded him that the crown princess would have to protect peace and quiet in the Iran Empire together with the prince in the future. The blonde looked down. The assistant asked what would happen when the contract ended. Simon was outraged that the guy would let his fiancée leave after the contract ended. The prince asked his assistant to discuss such a topic more quietly. Khalid wondered what would happen if his assistant was heard by people who should not know. Looking around nervously, the blonde reminded that the actress did not know their language. Drops of water slowly trickled down the gentleman's legs. The prince explained that he agreed with what the actress had said. The blonde took a snow-white towel and tied it around his waist. Drops of water flowed down his muscular torso. Khalid admitted that he did not know the details, but his fiancée was an actress. The blonde explained that the girl was capable of playing absolutely any role. The prince claimed that Veronica Hillsdale was just one of the brunette's many roles. Holding the towel, the assistant noticed that the prince and the girl had a very strange deal. Simon asked how it happened that the blonde agreed to such a contract. The prince threw a towel over his golden hair. The guy admitted that he could not understand what the girl was really thinking, and therefore decided to accept her offer. The assistant asked in surprise what the prince had done. Smiling, Khalid said that in any case it was connected with his purpose. The visibly nervous guy asked His Highness how he had figured this out. Smiling, the blonde asked if he had told his assistant how much he valued his honesty. Simon explained that he preferred that His Majesty tell him about the crown princess. Smiling, the prince said that he was quite smart and could offer a solution to the problem. The blonde explained that due to the ban, he could not talk about it. Khalid didn't know how to tell the girl that they had met more than 10 years ago. The blonde claimed that they had made a promise to each other. Standing in front of Irina's luxurious coat of arms, the girl began to doubt whether she had done the right thing. She looked closely at the blood-red flag of the empire. Only now did the actress begin to understand how far away the empire was. Warm sea waves rolled rhythmically and splashed against the high side of the ship. The prince ordered to search every corner to find Veronica. There was rage in the guy's emerald eyes. For the people of Weldon, Irene was a place that was difficult to enter. A malicious grin appeared on the customer's face. The man could not understand where the actress had gone without his permission. Smiling, the brunette explained that they were not accepting new orders at the moment. The woman noted that this was very sad news for her. The boss's ears were adorned with earrings with artifacts for camouflage. The madam explained that she could offer the customer something else instead. The man looked at the brunette with disapproval. Leslie assumed she had made the best choice. The ship sailed across the sea without a single wave. Seagulls were hovering above the huge vessel. The brunette reassured herself that no one would find her. Having turned around, the actress planned to live a wonderful life. The girl quickly moved away from the luxurious flag of the empire. Simon handed the gentleman a snow-white towel. The blonde suggested that he tell the girl about it in a couple of days. Wiping small drops of water from his luxurious torso, the prince lowered his head and reported that it was useless. The assistant reminded that in 3 days they would reach neutral waters. The blonde reminded that the ban would no longer apply outside the country. Simon explained that the girl did not even remember him. The guy assumed that if he told his beloved about what happened 10 years ago, she would think that he was poking around in her past and would hate him. Khalid lowered his amber eyes, sadness in them. The assistant asked how they could fix this. The blonde was determined to seduce the girl. Simon reminded that this was the last option that should be resorted to. The prince decided to make sure that the girl would remain with him even after the end of the contract. Simon could not believe his ears that his master was using such vulgar language. The blonde said that it would be difficult even for him. The prince understood perfectly well that the girl was not as simple as she seemed at first glance. Simon jerked his head sharply, suggesting that his master was thinking in the wrong direction. The blonde asked how Khalid was going to win the girl's heart. The boy told his assistant that he had to figure out how to do it. The prince reminded him that it was the blonde's job. Simon sighed heavily and said that he did not understand His Highness at all. The guy admitted that he was not so good in this area. The assistant saw His Highness with such an expression on his face for the first time. Khalid asked whether he should walk in front of the girl in clothes or naked. A huge stream of water came out of the assistant's mouth. The assistant, trembling all over, explained that even if the girl seemed to like powerful men, in reality she might prefer more modest ones. Simon, breaking into a scream, asked if His Highness was really the same prince he knew. The blonde suggested that Khalid was possessed by a demon. The assistant asked the blonde not to act rashly. Simon warned that this could only frighten the crown princess. Looking closely into the impudent man's eyes, the prince asked if he was sure of his thoughts. Averting his green eyes, he admitted that he was not entirely sure of his judgments. Khalid sternly asked why he was giving advice if he was not sure. In a trembling voice, the assistant asked His Highness for forgiveness. The prince was wondering what clothes he should choose to seduce her. Breaking into a scream, Simon asked the blonde to stop saying something like that. The boy looked back to stop his assistant from destroying his ideas, and reminded him that he was his right hand. Simon winced and asked again if he had ever neglected his duties. He sighed heavily and assumed that the girl had been through a lot. He dreamed of erasing her sad past and making her the happiest girl on the continent. The assistant smiled and said that there was no point in clinging to the past, and reminded them that the couple had the opportunity to build a bright future together. Khalid agreed that the boy was right. The prince suggested that the girl might not remember the promise they had made to each other many years ago. The blonde was determined, even if she never remembered what they had talked about. Khalid promised never to leave the girl alone again. The prince hoped that time would be on his side. The guy promised that his beloved would enjoy all the delights of life, be it food, expensive clothes, or jewelry. Khalid reminded that the brunette was his fiancée. Smiling, Simon suggested taking advantage of this opportunity. The prince was sure that he would pierce the brunette's lonely heart, erasing all her painful memories. The girl lay curled up on the sofa. A huge tent with burgundy translucent tulle hung over Leslie's head. The brunette was tormented by nightmares that reminded her of the time when she was just a commodity. Breathing heavily, the actress jumped out of bed. The brunette couldn't remember when she fell asleep. There was an insistent knock on the big door. Leslie stared in that direction. The girl asked, displeased, why knock so loudly? The door creaked, causing the brunette to run up and open the door. With distrust, Leslie asked why the crown prince had ordered the guy to guard her peace. The girl assumed that he was still accepting his guilt. The brown-haired man shuddered and confirmed Leslie's assumptions. The actress understood that this was her chance to gather more information. She looked closely into the guy's ruby eyes. The girl asked if the guard would mind if she asked him a couple of questions. Putting his hand on her chest, the brown-haired man assured her that the girl could ask whatever she wanted. Taking a notebook and a pen, the brunette asked what the position of women was in arena. The guard said that before the wedding, the couple discusses whose surname the family will carry. The guy explained that in their country it often happens that the woman is the head of the family. Leslie reported that in Weldon it was quite different. The girl asked with distrust whether the princess would be trusted with affairs of state. The guard admitted that he was not competent in this matter. The actress asked what was in arena regarding diplomatic relations. The brown-haired man blushed and explained that he wasn't sure of the answer to that question either. The girl laughed and reminded him that he had given her permission to ask whatever she wanted. The guy quickly blushed. The prince entered the room with his torso bare. The girl was holding a paper in her hands. She was visibly glad that he had returned. Khalid asked if she was expecting him. Leslie asked the blonde to come to her for a minute and said that they needed to conclude their contract. For a few moments the blonde froze, enjoying her attention. But when he caught the brunette's gaze on him, he asked what had happened. Khalid couldn't understand why the girl wasn't embarrassed by the fact that he had just left. And the actress became wary when she saw the prince's serious expression. She sincerely hoped that contracts were also being made in Iran's empire. Laughing, the girl said that this contract would only come into effect after the client and the actor agreed to the demands. The requirement stated that the actor had to conscientiously perform the role requested by the client as a foreign bride with whom he fell in love at first sight. The demand was that the prince protect the identity of an actor from the Kingdom of Weldon. The third point of the contract was that he had to provide the actress with any information she was interested in, financial and psychological support. The final clause was that upon completion of the contract, the client was to reward the girl with an amount equivalent to 10 million Weldon gold coins. Handing over the paper, the girl asked to finish with this. The brunette hoped that the contract would last no more than 2 years. Leslie explained that the longer the contract lasts, the higher the likelihood of problems arising, as when she played Veronica. Khalid noted that the contract had a strong impact on the girl. The actress warned that if they dragged it out for more than 2 years, people might get suspicious. The prince asked what the reason for this conclusion was. The girl explained that since they would not have a child, it would be quite suspicious. Noticing the blonde's embarrassment, the actress asked what was wrong. Coughing, the prince explained that there was nothing wrong with it. Leslie guessed that if she was like his bride, they would be forced to sleep together. The girl pointed her finger at his security document and said that he would need to use contraception. The girl explained that she had no intention of engaging in unprotected sex. Noticing the client's confusion, the girl asked if he had listened to her. Khalid grabbed her roughly by the waist and asked if the contract had been concluded. The blonde lifted the actress into his arms, reminding her that they were now a couple and needed to do what was right. Leslie explained that he had to sign the contract first. The prince said that the girl could do whatever she wanted with the contract. The blonde said that from now on he would do whatever he wanted. The guy threw the actress onto the bed and pressed the girl tightly to the soft mattress. He looked closely into her amethyst eyes. Khalid sat next to the sleeping girl. He looked closely at her beautiful features. The prince carefully moved her silky hair. Long strands instantly fell on the soft bed. Looking at the earrings, the blonde immediately realized that Leslie had fallen asleep before she had time to do anything. The girl mumbled something. She was having another nightmare. Khalid carefully covered the fragile body with a blanket. The blonde gently kissed his beloved on the forehead and asked her to fall asleep quickly. The ship was still sailing, cutting through the seawater. Kneeling, Lana begged the blonde to let her look at the future crown princess. After the negative answer, the girl still did not calm down and begged the prince's right hand for permission. Simon chuckled that at that moment there was no time for something like that. The brunette, trembling all over, asked why the guy's answer was like that. Approaching Lana, the brother asked the girl to stand up. Waving her arms, the brunette said that she wanted to meet the new princess. The girl did not stop begging to see the new princess. Lana explained that she wanted to get the girl's blessing. Looking at the picture, the blonde said that she was not even surprised by such antics of Lana. The boy reminded that despite how the patrol commander behaved, when it came to battle she had no equal. Lana was unstoppable during the attack on the Sarai. With her abilities, the brunette was able to win the prince's trust. The brunette was talented in combat, and when it came to battle, the field was filled with blood. Sweetly stretching, the girl said that she would also like to meet the new princess. Smiling, the brunette said that he had heard that her beauty was unrivaled. Okay, she still couldn't calm down and asked her colleagues to let her go. Bowing, the guy asked for forgiveness for his sister's behavior. Smiling, Simon said that they remembered the girl's achievements. San knew they had to behave appropriately. Shaitan knew that despite being from a poor village, they had earned the attention of the prince. The boy assumed that the prince considered them a burden. Placing a hand on San's shoulder, the blonde reminded him that the twins were talented warriors who deserved to be trusted. Simon asked the guard to always hold his head high. A barely noticeable smile appeared on the brown-haired man's face, and his ruby eyes lit up with praise. The bright rays of the sun woke up Brunette quite quickly. Standing up, Leslie looked at the customer. The prince asked if the crown princess enjoyed her bath. The girl's eyes sparkled and her cheeks turned red. The brunette thanked him, assuring him that it was divine. The girl felt awkward because she was trying to wash the poison out from under her nails. Leslie explained that after everything that had happened the night before, the bath was a wonderful way to start the day. The prince, embarrassed, said he was glad the girl had enjoyed it. The brunette noticed that the maids were behaving strangely. Leslie explained that she was not sure of her assumptions, since she did not know their language well. Steam from the hot water quickly filled the small room. Two girls carefully massaged the hands and head of the new mistress. Leslie enjoyed the massage and the subtle scent of rose petals. For a few moments, the girl felt like she was in heaven. The red-haired girl looked at her new mistress and smiled radiantly. The actress could not understand why the maids cared so much about her. Smiling back, the brunette thanked the maid. A blush appeared on the maid's face. Turning around, the girl began to talk about something with her colleagues. Leslie was wary because she did not understand a word of what they were saying. The brunette was genuinely surprised by such concern. The girl got the impression that the maids were not at all surprised by the appearance of the crown princess. Smiling, Khalid asked if she liked it. The guy explained that he had ordered the servants to take care of the brunette. The girl frowned and said that was not what she had meant. For Leslie, such care was a pleasant surprise. Having given in to the girl, the prince said that he needed to apologize for yesterday. A little confused, Leslie asked him what he meant. The blonde felt bad for not being able to finish what he started last night. He hovered over the actress, staring into her amethyst eyes. Khalid began to pull his lips to hers. The brunette shuddered and informed His Highness that she was not ready for something like this until they had clarified a few more things. The guy asked again how this could be, because it seemed to him that she was very ready. The prince unceremoniously pointed to the golden bracelets that adorned the brunette's graceful hand. Leslie pulled her hand away sharply and asked for forgiveness. The blonde was not confused for a second, and he reached for her desired lips. Gently stroking his cheek, the girl asked him to wait. The prince reminded her that they were together in a small room and gently touched her thigh. He pressed on the leg and forced the girl to lift the limb. Khalid asked the actress how much longer he could hold back. The girl, embarrassed, asked to wait another minute. With a trembling hand, she pointed to some movement and asked what it was. The big cat's tail wagged from side to side. The prince asked in surprise if this was the first time the girl had seen Teru. Leslie repeated the animal's name. The tiger lay on a small sofa, carefully examining the lovers. The prince explained that unlike Weldon, Irina still had magic. Khalid explained that every inhabitant of the country possessed a piece of it. The blonde explained that those who possessed particularly strong magic could give it shape. The guy assured that this was how the guardian spirits of the Terra were born. Khalid claimed that no one could usually support Terra outside the Empire's borders, and he boasted that he was the only one who could do it. The prince gently tucked the brunette's hair behind her ear. The guy asked the girl not to worry. He claimed that the ethereal beast would not harm her. Khalid suggested the actress to continue what they had started. The girl stuttered and tried to say something. The blonde man asked excitedly if she wanted to continue. The sounds of his heartbeat echoed in Leslie's ears. The girl admitted with a trembling voice that on the contrary, she really wanted to. The brunette fell in love with his hugs, gentle touches, and passionate kisses. The actress realized that kissing was one thing, but she couldn't have sex with him. The girl was ashamed to admit that she had never done it. From childhood, Leslie was taught that the only thing that matters is the mission and to act decisively. Madame ordered her students to never give up their hearts, and to remember that they always had to act rationally and control their emotions. The brunette understood that such actions could be too dangerous for her. The actress slightly pushed the guy away and bowed her head. Khalid asked what she said. Pushing him away, the brunette said that she would not tolerate unprotected sex. The prince said that he had already taken care of everything. He pointed to the gold bracelets jingling on his wrist. The boy explained that one bracelet was enough to prevent conception. The prince blushed and explained that she had put on all three, and he decided that this was a sign that she was ready to become one. The girl remembered the maid's reaction and understood why she was in such a good mood. Until that moment, the brunette could not even think that the bracelet was a means of contraception. The prince claimed that he was sure that the girl knew about it from the very beginning. He grabbed the girl abruptly and lifted her up in his arms. A slight blush appeared on Leslie's face. Khalid carried her confidently into the box. With her heart pounding, the girl explained that she could not do this without preparation. The blonde suggested going to bed since the girl was protected from conception. There was confidence in her amber eyes. The actress, very embarrassed, insisted that another clause needed to be added to the contract. Pushing him away, the brunette said that no extra sex was needed. The actress said that she was ready to do anything as long as the role required it. The brunette assured that she was not obliged to be in the role all the time. Handing him the papers, the girl reminded him that it was a simple formality. The guy shuddered slightly at such news. The customer said that she could do with her discretion. The brunette quickly wrote a new clause in their contract. She handed the paper over and asked the prince to sign it. Leslie asked if he had come up with a new name for her. The brunette said that she could continue using the name Veronica. The guy was genuinely surprised, since he was sure that she would use her real name. The girl said that this act was too dangerous. Leslie reminded that her name had to remain secret. The prince suggested the name Neris for the girl. Khalid explained that the name meant sea fairy. The brunette's heartbeat echoed in her ears again. She still couldn't admit to herself that she had fallen in love with the guy. Seeing her confusion, the blonde asked if she liked the name. The girl noticed that the guy's smile was very strange and she considered him a weirdo. The brunette agreed that the name Neris sounded good. The actress signed the new amendments to the contract without hesitation. The blonde man asked her with concern how she felt. San asked his colleague to calm down, explaining that Tara had really scared the captive. Walking to the place of imprisonment of the girl, the blonde noticed that she hid for a long time. The guy assumed that she used concealment magic. Bowing, the guard assured that they still had not figured it out. The assistant asked if they had learned anything about the nature of magic. The guy claimed that everything had happened too quickly, and they had not been able to understand. The colleague stood near the cage, which was locked with many locks. With each movement of the captive, the chains made an unpleasant sound. Simon assumed that she had completely lost hope. The door of the wooden cage creaked open. Shaitan explained that he could interrogate Simon personally and that Simon should not worry. The right hand reported that there was no need for this. The blonde assumed that once they reached the Empire, the girl would be finished. The guard asked if he wanted to extract all the magic from the girl. The blonde screamed furiously and beat her hands on the floor. Looking at his colleague, San noted that this punishment was even more terrible than death. The prince's assistant inserted the key into the heavy padlock and turned it. Simon asked how Lana was feeling. The brown-haired man assured her that his sister was as active as ever. The guard standing by the cage bowed to the boys in farewell. He said that the girl beat him up with the words that they should act together. The last sentence explained why the guard's body was covered with numerous bruises. Simon said that they would soon be arriving. The blonde was sure that he should have been more vigilant. The captive looked at the guys with disdain. The chains continued to jingle. The blonde grabbed the bars and squeezed them tightly. The metal gleamed beautifully in the light of the lamps. Soon the moon hung over the sea surface. Simon bowed and said that it was a great honor for him to meet Her Highness. The blonde asked for forgiveness for such a sudden visit. The girl laughed and explained that everything was fine. The brunette assumed that they had met before. A slight blush appeared on the cheeks of her right hand. That vulgar moment flashed before the boy's eyes. Leslie thanked the blonde for his hard work. The crown princess sincerely hoped that they would get along well in the future. Simon, very embarrassed, said that he had to thank the girl. The blonde promised that he would do everything possible for her as the dear crown princess. The blonde sighed heavily and asked his right hand to do what he asked. The assistant indifferently said that he was ready to do whatever His Highness ordered. Khalid noticed that she had slept poorly and assumed that his beloved might have fallen ill. The blonde ordered Simon to check the health of his beloved. Leaning over the princess, the guy asked Her Highness to allow him to examine her body. The girl gave her consent without hesitation. Simon grabbed her face. He opened her eyes wider, peering into them. Leslie was surprised by such a method of examination. The assistant suggested that the girl had no health problems. The blonde explained that he was concerned because the princess was so petite. The actress covered her eye with her hand and was amazed that in addition to being the prince's assistant, the guy was also a doctor. The prince suggested that they should have fed the girl better. The blonde asked if there was anything else he should have worried about. The doctor reported that she looked quite healthy. Leslie noticed that the advisor seemed quite experienced. The girl realized that she should get closer to the guy, as it could be useful. The blonde said he needed to check something. The guy asked his assistant to take care of the princess while he was gone. Khalid suddenly shuddered and asked his assistant not to blab too much. Looking up, Leslie asked if she could ask a question. She wondered if the prince had said anything about her identity. Simon said that His Highness said that she was his bride and the ruler of Sarayev. The blonde said that the girl would become the ruler of the Iran Empire in the future. The brunette, alert, asked if that was all the information that was known about her. The assistant remembered that Khalid had said that he had fallen in love with her at first sight. Simon assured that he knew that she did not know their language and loved red wine. Smiling, the assistant said that His Majesty ordered the workers to prepare the best dishes for her. The brunette's hand clenched tightly from such information. Leslie realized that the blonde had decided to fatten her up. Lowering his gaze, the blonde apologized for his behavior. The guy asked if she had any other questions. The brunette admitted that she didn't quite understand the guy. The actress asked why no one was surprised by her appearance. The assistant explained that the guard she met when she boarded did not remember her face. Simon explained that almost no one on the ship knew Weldon. The blonde explained that the crew had no idea what had happened on the mainland. He said that his subordinates could not read what was written on the wanted poster. The crown princess was very confused that the blonde knew about Veronica. Leslie assumed that he knew her native language better than Khalid. The blonde looked at her with disdain. The girl realized that he clearly understood all the nasty things she said. The brunette asked if he was against it, even knowing who she really was. The guy promised to prove his sincerity with his actions. He bowed deeply before Her Highness. The actress looked away, trying not to get nervous. Simon asked excitedly if everything was okay. The girl thanked him in advance. The brunette said that she was looking forward to being in his care. The guy's face turned slightly red as he hadn't expected to hear such warm words. Confused, Leslie asked if everything was okay with the blonde. The assistant politely asked Her Highness how he could be of service. The girl held out her hand with snow-white skin and asked if other people wore similar bracelets. Simon said that the only person who wore similar bracelets besides her was Prince Khalid. The blonde explained that the bracelets were very valuable and were prepared especially for the girl. Looking at the jewelry, Leslie asked if it was the blonde's treasure. With surprise in his emerald eyes, the assistant confirmed the actress's assumption. Looking at the valuable jewelry, the actress realized that the prince was planning to use the jewelry with other girls. Leslie looked at the jewel with some distrust. Taking the initiative, the assistant decided to tell her about the crown prince. The blonde told that his master was the heir of the Hartman dynasty, the Empire of Iran. Khalid was the most worthy heir to the throne. The blonde was not only smart but also talented in martial arts since childhood. Khalid had no equal in any of the disciplines. Simon said that because of the gentleman's position and beauty, he had no end of women. Looking away, the brunette said that she had already guessed about it. The aide said that His Highness had never been involved in any scandalous relationship. The aide said without a shadow of a doubt that the prince was perfection itself. The blonde claimed that Khalid had neither a bride nor a concubine. Simon said that he was not interested in women at all. Leslie knew perfectly well that there were those with whom the prince slept. The assistant smiled and suggested that the only women the prince had dealings with were those who served him in bed. With calmness in her voice, the brunette noted that she knew nothing at all about the groom. The girl frowned, having learned all the information. Simon, very nervous, assumed that he had said something wrong. The blonde remembered that he had told him what a wonderful person the prince was. The brunette sighed heavily and asked what the people would say about the prince bringing an unknown girl and calling her his bride. And she assumed that the people would treat her with caution. Smiling, Simon admitted that the people were a little surprised. The assistant assured them that they believed in any choice of the crown prince. Surprise and distrust flashed in Leslie's eyes. The girl asked why the people trusted the blonde so much. Simon said that finally someone had appeared who could fill the heart of the crown prince. Looking away, the blonde realized that unfortunately he couldn't tell the girl about magic because of the ban. The assistant assured the brunette that she need not worry, as the principal was completely charmed by her. The door creaked open. Entering the room, the guy noticed that they got along well. The blonde gave his assistant an unkind look. Khalid said that the assistant could leave if he finished the conversation. The brunette was a little taken aback, because the prince himself brought the blonde to tell her how the crown princess should behave. Simon assured her that he should take his leave. Despite the girl's expectations that he was quiet, this turned out to be false. She waved goodbye to the assistant. With some trepidation, Khalid asked the actress if she had had a normal conversation with his assistant. The blonde man suggested that his bride arrange another meeting with his assistant. Khalid asked her not to get too close to the guy. Looking at the prince, Leslie asked if he was jealous. The guy asked again how he could be jealous of a hired girl for his own advisor. The blonde insisted that it was impossible. The girl asked if everything was okay with him. She noticed that he left rather quickly. Khalid sat down on a comfortable sofa and lied that everything was okay. Approaching Simon, the brown-haired man reported that the prisoner had escaped and that as a result of this, several people were injured. The prince coolly assumed that the prisoner was lying low, nursing her wounds. Trembling with fear, San explained that the captive was planning to repeat the attempt on His Highness's life. The brown-haired man's breathing was very ragged, and his voice lacked its former confidence. The prince became very wary, since the captive managed to get out of her shackles. The blonde's suspicion was confirmed that she had an accomplice. Panicked, San asked if the master had left the prisoner alive. The brown-haired man explained that His Majesty's life could depend on it. The prince asked him directly what he was getting at. The blonde replied that he had no intention of betraying his principles. Placing his hand on the guard's shoulder, Khalid promised to punish the criminal as soon as they returned to the Empire. A strong shudder ran through the guard's body. The guy asked for forgiveness, explaining that his emotions got the better of him. With excitement, Leslie asked again if everything was okay with the customer. The brunette quickly noticed that his face said otherwise. The prince pulled a fake smile onto his face. The guy claimed that everything had already been decided, and that she had nothing to worry about. Pointing his finger at the papers, Khalid noticed that the brunette had been working hard. She said that Simon had told her a lot of useful information. Leslie hugged the folder of papers tightly to herself. With a heavy sigh, the blonde informed the girl that she shouldn't try so hard. The actress was sure that she had to approach her role with full responsibility. Smiling, the brunette suggested that for her amazing work, the dear client could give her some kind of bonus. The girl blushed a little from her impudence. Pressing herself against the blonde's muscular torso, she asked if he had forgotten that he had promised to give her everything she wanted. Khalid asked what his chosen one wanted. The girl wanted to tell him, but her heartbeat echoed in his ears and her face darkened. The brunette turned away sharply, realizing that she couldn't ask for freedom. For as long as she could remember, a free life was what she dreamed of most. But the brunette didn't know what she would do when she got free rein. Leslie dreamed of a life without any responsibilities in a place far from Fiore. Putting her hand on his massive wrist, the brunette asked if he had listened to her. The girl realized that she had been led by emotions. Khalid asked what she wanted to say. Turning to him, the brunette put on a fake smile. The girl said that she only wanted money. Small dim stars glittered in the blue of the night sky. Simon noticed that the purity of the girl's magic was astonishing. Smiling, the brown-haired man noted that the crown princess was indeed special. The assistant noted that even the color of the girl's eyes was unique. Simon noticed that the deep-as-abyss eyes were very difficult to describe in words. The guy noticed that even kind words spoken by the brunette unconsciously carried magic in themselves. Sun sincerely thanked his colleague. The blonde said that he would look forward to working with the girl. Simon was looking forward to when Leslie would show her full potential. The assistant said it had been a long time since he had fallen under the mercy of such a man. The blonde admitted that he had almost cried. Sun asked the boy in surprise if he had cried. The assistant reminded him that he had said that he had almost cried. Simon explained that the prince had been right all along. Shaitan began to understand why His Majesty had insisted so much on going to Weldon. The assistant explained that the presence of the princess was equivalent to the presence of the high priest. San was surprised that the girl was so strong. The guy assumed that the brunette had the ability to purify. The blonde assumed that he had taken up too much of the boy's time. Simon ordered the brown-haired man to go and finish his night patrol. The guard bowed respectfully, saying goodbye to him. The blonde was left alone on the deck, peering into the depths of the night sky. The guy was worried if the girl would be okay. The assistant realized that the brunette had climbed aboard without suspecting anything. A light wind was filling the huge sails. Simon realized that the prince had to remain on good terms with the girl in order to explain everything. The blonde sincerely hoped that the gentleman would not quarrel with her until then. The prince, visibly nervous, said that he had turned the boy's fears into reality. With a tremor in his voice, the blonde asked what the prince meant. Khalid sighed heavily and suggested that he had ruined everything. The actress said without hesitation that she only needed money. The blonde man lowered his eyes and explained that he was sure that she would want something else. The girl looked away and said that she didn't need anything else. Her cold-bloodedness and mercantilism struck the prince in the heart. The actress reminded him that she would work according to her payment. The blonde realized that he was not interested in the girl as a person at all. Khalid reminded her that he could give her anything she wanted. Turning away, the brunette said that she only needed money. The assistant reminded that His Highness wanted to seduce the princess. The guy blushed and said that he wanted to but realized his failure. Simon assumed that the prince had only made things worse. The boy insisted that he had expected it to be difficult, but he hadn't known how difficult it would be. Moonlight flooded Leslie's room. The girl sat on the bed peering into the semi-darkness. The brunette realized that she had always strived for freedom, but she had never thought about what she would do when she finally got it. Leslie assumed it was because she had had her life decided for her. She clasped her hands tightly and was visibly nervous. A snow-white dove flew into the open window of the room. The bird created a noise that tore through the night silence with each flap of its wings. Without fear of the girl, she sat down on the sofa. The bird without fear sat on the tender hands of the brunette. The actress realized that the prince gave her a chance to get freedom, but gave warmth even just looking at her. The brunette felt warm inside when she remembered how he had softly called her name. Leslie realized that love was not part of their contract. Quite quickly, the feathered friend fluttered away from the girl's velvety hands. The brunette understood that love is not needed by someone who already has everything. Leslie was left alone, holding a small feather in her hands. Hearing the menacing roar of the tiger, the girl shuddered. Leslie looked at the big cat who was sweetly pulling herself up on her bed. Trembling with fear, the brunette covered herself with a soft blanket. The girl could not understand why the animal was so big. Despite the fact that the actress had seen the animal many times, she was still scared. With her eyes closed, Leslie couldn't believe that even on the ship she couldn't find peace for a second. She begged for just a little quiet time. The big cat, stepping softly on the wooden floor, headed towards the actress. The brunette explained that she didn't care if it was Tara or an animal. The actress couldn't understand how it was possible to live with the beast. The curtains parted. With tears in her eyes, Leslie realized that her life had been saved. The blonde asked what was going on. Smiling, Khalid assumed that the girl and Tara were beginning to get used to each other. The brunette asked why the guy had been absent for so long. Leslie asked how it was possible to leave her alone with an animal. Smiling, the blonde noticed that his princess had gotten better. The guy noticed that the girl seemed depressed. With a trembling voice, the actress asked the boy to say something to the beast. Looking into the eyes of the big cat, Khalid waved his hand, ordering it to return. And a few moments later, the tiger ran out of the room. The prince admitted that he wanted to ask the brunette for one thing. Leslie asked what he wanted to add to their contract. Walking quickly towards the girl, the blonde reminded her that this was already part of their contract. The prince reminded her that they needed to ask for a blessing together. The blonde man knelt down in front of her so that their eyes were level. Leslie realized that this was something like a marriage. In a trembling voice, the girl asked what she was supposed to do. Khalid said that nothing was required of her. The guy asked the brunette to stay on his side. On the table sparkled gold jewelry with precious stones. There were many jewels for every taste for the new princess. 3 maids were looking after the brunette. One of the girls was tenderly combing the silky locks of her mistress's hair. Leslie knew very well that sailors were quite superstitious people, but she did not think that they were so superstitious. The brunette was genuinely surprised that there was a separate ritual for crossing the borders of the empire. It was too unexpected for the girl. Sitting down next to the brunette, Khalid said that they would soon enter imperial waters. The guy explained that if they failed to perform the ritual in honor of the Lord of the Seas, they could encounter bad weather and lose their course or even end up in a shipwreck. The actress was nervous, but she tried not to catch the eye of the ship's crew. The girl was very worried about how they would receive her. It seemed to Leslie that everything was going too smoothly. Entering the room, the prince noticed that preparations were actively progressing. With a grin, the blonde asked his bride if she was nervous. The girl shrugged and reminded him that he had said she didn't have to do anything. Khalid explained that that was true, but he loomed over the girl, causing her cheeks to flush. Leslie silently prayed that he wouldn't do it in front of everyone. The brunette squeezed her eyes tightly shut. The actress felt a gentle touch on her neck. Khalid gently adjusted her necklace. The prince explained that it was normal to feel nervous before meeting the Lord of the Sea. The girl wanted to say something, but the prince quickly disappeared from her field of vision. The brunette tried to understand what he was going to do, Leslie willed herself not to be distracted by any nonsense. She adjusted a strand of her thick, long black hair. Seeing the bewilderment in the maid's eyes, the girl smiled. The actress realized that it was time for her to return to work. Simon reminded His Highness that it would rain during the ceremony. The blonde asked Khalid if everything was okay. The guy asked if he was afraid that the princess would be shocked. The blonde calmly replied that some things were better seen in person. The moonlight illuminated the endless expanses of the sea. It snatched the silhouette of a girl from the semi-darkness. Leslie walked unsteadily along the side of the ship, her face veiled and her body adorned with many jewels. The princess was nervous because it was time for her to show herself to the entire crew. The girl felt her heartbeat. The brunette finally breathed in the fresh, refreshing sea air. The actress became alert when she heard a suspicious noise. The little girl approached the princess and took her hand. The little girl pointed her finger forward. Leslie was taken aback, because the sound came from a dozen people who were bowing before her. Smiling, Simon said that the people were a little surprised, but they trusted His Highness. The blonde assured that everyone would respect the new bride. The guy claimed that no one would raise their head without her permission. The brunette realized what Simon meant. She enjoyed the light sea breeze. The girl with emerald eyes smiled and went away somewhere. Leslie looked around carefully. The brunette walked confidently past the people worshipping her. This situation scared the actress a little. The girl was not used to the fact that they worshipped her as soon as she left the cabin. The wind quickly filled the large, luxurious sails. The actress stood on the edge of the ship, peering into the sea surface. The brunette carefully placed the blood-red cape over the lady's graceful shoulders. Leslie thanked the maid for her care. The actress was genuinely surprised that such a thin cape could be so warm. The girl noticed that she was wearing a magical artifact as an accessory. Having examined her clothes more closely, the actress realized that almost her entire body was covered in these artifacts. The brunette realized that she had nothing to be surprised about, because Khalid was a wealthy prince. Leslie heard footsteps behind her. Turning around, the girl was sure that it was Khalid who had approached her to perform the ritual. When the brunette turned her head, she shuddered. The big cat was sitting behind the girl and looking at her. Trembling all over, the actress asked what this wild beast wanted from her. Leslie remembered that she had to be the perfect princess and play the role well. The girl turned away sharply, convincing herself that everything would be fine. The brunette was sure that if she didn't look at the tiger, it would go away. The big cat came up to the princess and rubbed itself against her legs. The tiger looked at the girl carefully. The crew began to condemn the beast for approaching the girl first. No one had ever seen him act like that with anyone other than the prince. No one was surprised that the girl became their crown princess. Trembling with fear, Leslie couldn't understand why the animal continued to pursue her. To her regret, the brunette couldn't hold back her tears and the trembling all over her body. Soon distinct footsteps were heard, quickly approaching her. The ship's crew crouched down, waiting for the prince to approach. There was satisfaction in the actress's eyes, because he arrived on time as always. The prince wore a black robe embroidered with gold, and artifacts adorned his forehead and ears. His massive, luxurious torso was barely visible from under his clothes. A barely noticeable smile was visible from under the black veil. The princess was incredibly happy to see the blonde, reminding her with a smile that the ceremony was about to begin. The blonde noted that the girl looked like a sea fairy. Approaching the actress, the blonde extended his hand to her. She gently placed her hand in his large palm. The girl was pleasantly surprised by the warmth she felt from this touch. The prince gently pulled her hand towards him. Khalid whispered that he almost fell for the trick. If the blonde hadn't known all the circumstances, he would have actually decided that she was glad to see him. The prince remarked that the girl's acting was excellent, as she said. Leslie tried to assure him that she was not pretending. Turning around, the brunette saw mountains of gold, precious stones, and fresh fruit. The girl realized that the workers had tried hard to prepare for this ritual. The actress noticed that the entire crew of the ship looked serious. In a whisper, the princess reminded that the blonde did not tell her that everything would be so large-scale. The girl asked him again if he was sure she shouldn't do anything. Smiling, Khalid reminded her that she just needed to be near him. The couple approached a table with decorations and fruit. There were 2 glasses and 2 candles. The entire crew gathered and watched this with bowed heads. Simon handed a palm leaf to His Highness and asked him to take it. Looking at the girl, the prince asked her not to be afraid. The brunette passed by the couple. The actress watched the maid with caution, trying to understand what he meant. The 2 servants and Khalid were clutching palm leaves tightly. Looking somewhere far into the depths of the sea, Simon reported that he was already next to them. The brunette tried to understand what the assistant was talking about. Strong gusts of wind and rain swept over the ship. With a trembling voice, Leslie asked if it was a storm. In addition to the rumble, the sound of a horn made of a shell was heard. The actress pressed herself tightly to the guy's body. "You don't understand what's going on around you." The prince explained that the one he had spoken of had arrived. The girl realized with a shudder that there was something under the ship. The creature's huge blue eyes were watching the ship as it sailed into its waters. The bright blue eyes reflected the light of the stars through the depths of the sea. The blonde hugged the girl tightly. Leslie noticed that Khalid was not worried at all. The girl's ears echoed with the sounds of her heartbeat, and fear shone in her eyes. The silhouette of the creature was barely visible through the depths of the sea. Closing her eyes and ears, the brunette begged for it all to end. The blonde hugged the girl, kissed her tenderly on the forehead, and said in a calm, gentle voice that everything was okay. Soon they began to sing a melodious song that could be heard for many kilometers from the ship. All the participants were clutching palm leaves tightly in their hands. The boy's amber eyes were calm. The actress couldn't understand how the prince could look so brave, even without armor and a sword. Soon the singing ended and only a light rustling of leaves could be heard. The blonde ordered the door to open. Leslie could not understand what His Majesty was saying. The girl was delighted by the sharpness of his gaze. Blue eyes looked at the travelers through the dark waters. A roar rang through the air again, which frightened the girl greatly. Khalid gently took the brunette by the hand and asked her to look carefully. She did not yet know the meaning of the ritual, which she considered a simple superstition. A huge glowing portal appeared from under the hands of the couple. Leslie had no idea of the creature she was about to encounter. That wonderful night, the brunette encountered a part of herself she had never suspected. The actress was tormented by the question of whether the prince knew about this. The girl understood that it would take her a long time to understand this. The large striped predator happily wagged its tail and purred tenderly. Leslie assumed that the guy knew her better than she knew herself. Smiling, the blonde greeted the new princess in arena. The magical glow filled the deck of the ship with bright light. The brunette watched what was happening with admiration. The servants in their ritual song addressed the most wonderful of all, the one who shines brightly from the top of their divine land. The people turned to the deity in the hope that he would be able to fly up and defeat evil and illuminate the plain. The actress realized that the song was performed in a language unfamiliar to her. The brunette could not understand why she understood this song. The girl looked at the person to whom this song was intended without fear. Leslie asked if what was happening was too strange. Smiling, the prince welcomed her to arena. The people continued to sing the song, promising to live for the sake of the deity. Soon the actress's consciousness began to rapidly cloud over. The brunette quickly lost consciousness. Leslie woke up in the arms of the blonde. The girl said that she wanted to ask him about many things. The actress asked if he could put her down. Khalid answered negatively. The brunette claimed that she was completely fine and suggested that they sit down and talk. After listening to the bride, the guy sat down on a comfortable sofa. Breaking away, she assured that she meant to sit opposite each other. Simon informed Her Highness that it would be better if she remained in this position. The blonde explained that she had spent too much energy. Simon said that given how strong the synastry was between her and the prince, they should have been closer to each other. Embarrassed, Leslie asked what the guy had on his shoulder. Smiling, the assistant explained that the creature was his Terra. The blonde claimed that he was able to summon her after crossing the border. The girl remembered that she already knew about magical creatures. She suggested returning to her previous question. Simon nodded and explained that the energy she possessed was compatible with the prince's mana. The advisor recommended that the couple stay closer to each other, as this would benefit both of them. The blonde said that for the people of Arena, magic was a very important aspect of life. Khalid asked the blonde to stop his story. The prince was sure that if he continued, the brunette would not be able to fall asleep. The guy greatly shortened his story, explaining that Iran was a country of magicians. Simon wanted to object but held back. The blonde said that the girl needed to be given a rest. The prince asked to pay special attention to food and even drink a glass of water with caution. Simon bowed and accepted the order of His Highness. Leslie called out to her assistant, asking him to tell her everything in detail. She recalled that they were at the border and asked if that had anything to do with what she saw. Bowing, the blonde asked him to explain everything as briefly as possible. Simon said that the border related to the waters was between the central continent and the Empire of Iran. The guy explained that it was a place between the part of the world where magic disappeared and where it remained. Simon said that they crossed the border a few minutes ago. The brunette asked what the shadow was, what she saw. The guy said that the dragon protected the balance and the part they were sailing on belonged to the creature's domain. With a trembling voice, Leslie asked again about the dragon. The advisor reported that the creature's name was Erig. Drops of cold sweat quickly spread down the brunette's cheeks. The girl was genuinely surprised that the dragon even had a name. The blonde said that they rarely saw the creature's true form and that it usually appeared as a shadow. The guy assumed that the dragon had become interested in looking at Her Highness. The prince waved his hand and asked Simon whether he wanted to calm the girl down or scare her. Pressing his beloved to himself, the blonde asked the guy to finish the stories for that day and put them off until a little later. The actress asked the guy to tell her more about Mana and Sinistry the next day. Khalid was genuinely happy to see that the girl was okay, and not only not scared, but also full of enthusiasm. The guy realized that the new princess would easily adapt to life in Sarajevo. Bowing, he promised to tell Her Highness more. The door slammed shut and Khalid and the brunette were left alone. The guy abruptly picked up his bride in his arms and said that she should rest. He confidently walked towards the luxurious bed. Khalid carefully sat the brunette down on the bed. Turning away, the blonde suggested that she would sleep better if he was not around. Leslie was alarmed by what was happening to the guy. The brunette suggested that it would be better if she left. The actress sighed heavily and asked if it was because of her that he could not transfer anyone to this room. The girl resolutely asked how many girls the prince had, and how often he changed them. The confused guy asked what she was talking about. Leslie explained that she was talking about his mistresses. The brunette lowered her eyes and said that she knew it was just a game. And even though she was a fake bride, she had the right to know it. The actress recalled that it was very important for them to look like a happy couple, and she could have stayed in another cabin. The guy, breaking into a scream, asked to stop this conversation. He pressed her tightly to the bed and hovered over her fragile body. Khalid ordered Neris to look at him. The girl looked away tiredly. Squeezing her wrists tightly, Khalid asked if she could say it while looking him in the eye. The blonde ordered them to stop doubting his words and repeated once again that he had no other woman besides her. The prince asked her not to make him worse than he really was. Khalid, having calmed down a little, asked for forgiveness for attacking her so abruptly. The blonde man strongly recommended that Neris take a little rest. The girl asked him to wait a little. Leslie herself couldn't understand why she did it. The brunette noticed that he looked like he was in a lot of pain. The girl began to think that she did not want to hurt him. The actress kissed him tenderly on the lips. The girl felt as if she had committed a crime. Khalid sternly asked the girl why she kissed him. The brunette said that it was an apology for her mistake. The prince, embarrassed, suggested that she might have misunderstood him. The guy said that he had never kept anyone near him for these purposes and never would. Khalid explained that the bracelets did indeed work as a contraceptive, but he only gave them to Leslie because he thought the jewelry would look nice on her. The blonde realized that neither he nor the priestess could explain it to her. Smiling, the actress said that she was glad. It was all just a misunderstanding. The boy's heart began to pound wildly, and he could hear his own heartbeat clearly in his ears. Khalid insisted that he was the one who should have asked for forgiveness. The actress noticed that the guy's eyes were glowing in anticipation of her consent, and his heart began to beat faster. The brunette nodded uncertainly. He abruptly lifted Leslie into his arms, and at that moment the girl realized that she was now sure of her feelings. The girl craved the same as the prince. Their lips merged into one in a passionate kiss. Khalid pushed his beloved onto the bed, pressing her tightly to the scarlet sheets. The prince, gently stroking her hand, said that he could no longer hold back. Leslie realized that this had to happen. Her hands dug into his silky hair. The brunette was already ready to experience unpleasant feelings or pain. The girl lay on the bed experiencing incredible bliss. She held his hand tightly in hers. Khalid admitted that he was furious that she always acted distantly about everything that concerned the contract and their relationship. The blonde said that he decided to take advantage of this moment. The actress was incredibly turned on when his breath touched her soft skin, and her body shuddered. Turning her face away, the brunette noticed that the guy was starting gradually, and it was quite cute. Leslie realized that the guy was teasing her again. The blonde noticed that he didn't even know her real name. Trying to restrain herself, the brunette tried to say her real name. The prince assured her that everything was fine. Khalid asked the girl to pronounce his name and promised that then he would definitely not be able to restrain himself. After a passionate time of love, the girl asked if the people thought she was strange because she fainted right during the ceremony. A little confused, Khalid asked what she was talking about. Covering her delicate face with her hands, the brunette suggested that she had ruined the first impression of herself as the crown princess. The blonde assured her that she had done a great job. After these words, a barely noticeable smile appeared on Leslie's face. The prince reminded her that she had fallen right into his arms. Khalid asked if the girl had forgotten that incident. The blonde reminded her that the dragon rarely showed interest in anyone. The boy kissed her hand tenderly, explaining that no one in the world could compare to her. Khalid asked her to remember his words and never forget. Having lit her pipe, the brunette insisted that she did not know where the actress had been. The count said that they had combed the entire capital, but had not found a trace of the girl. Hillsdale explained that no one could have covered their tracks like that except for the people from Fiore. The man assumed that this had been the lady's plan from the very beginning. The brunette, calmly smoking her pipe, noted that she had to be too bold. The madam assured that her subordinate had carried out his request exactly as stated in the contract. The brunette noted that Veronica had done everything possible to fulfill her part of the contract. The lady asked if the man wanted to kill the performer just because she had done her part too well. The brunette explained that each of those present had been personally appointed by her to strictly fulfill their duties. The woman waved her graceful hand in the direction of his subordinates. The brunette admitted that she was not happy with the fact that the count was putting her in an awkward position in front of her students. While puffing on her pipe, she suggested that she should start killing her clients. One of the guys held a sharp blade to the man's throat. The smell of tobacco was clearly audible in the air, and the smoke enveloped the impudent man. Grinning, Hillsdale said that it was impossible to disappear from the wanted list once you were there. The man suggested saying that the girl was dead. The count explained that this way the brunette would be removed from the list and no unnecessary questions would be asked. Noticing that he had made concessions to her, Hillsdale explained that in exchange she would have to fulfill his new request. The count explained that he wanted to make sure that the actress who played Veronica never appeared in the country again. Madame could not understand how Leslie managed to work for a man. The woman asked how much the count was prepared to pay for it. After adjusting his suit, Hillsdale said that he was ready to pay a price equal to the reward for the girl's head. The count asked if this sum would be enough. The brunette bowed in farewell and thanked him for his patronage. The woman frowned, realizing that there was something in the county that she didn't know about. Madame was disappointed because Leslie was her highest-paid actress. The brunette sincerely wanted her to become her successor in the future. Having thrown out the wanted ad, the madam hoped that the girl would not take it to heart. The brunette remembered that she had always been too good and could attract absolutely any client. The woman turned around and asked why the actor was eavesdropping on her. The lady noted that it didn't look like a guy. The silhouette of the subordinate slowly emerged from the semi-darkness of the room. There was a barely noticeable smile on the brown-haired man's face. The woman asked what he needed. Bowing, the guy asked why she pretended not to know. The brown-haired man took off his small top hat. He asked why the lady decided he was eavesdropping. The guy explained to her that he had simply arrived at the wrong time, and asked her to pay attention to the fact that no one had noticed him. The brunette felt disgusted by the guy's behavior. The woman sternly said that she didn't like that he came whenever he wanted. Smiling, the brown-haired man explained that if he forgot that he had invaded her personal space, then he shouldn't have interfered in his affairs. With a creepy grin, he asked where Leslie was. Approaching the instructor, the woman reminded him that the girl did not belong to him. She gently lifted his face, drilling him with her garnet eyes. The lady asked if she looked like the person who knew where the girl was. The brunette understood that she could threaten the count, but not the instructor. Madame was very alarmed that the guy was so obsessed with Leslie. He gently touched the woman's shoulders and explained that she was the only one who could help the actress disappear without a trace. With a heavy sigh, the lady said she had no idea where the girl was. The instructor persistently asked again where the actress was. The brunette said that the ship she had prepared for Leslie had already sailed. The woman said she was told the girl was not there. She repeated with irritation that she did not know where she was. Having bowed, the guy decided to believe the lady. He said that the brunette always surprised him and he intended to tell her about it when they met again. The woman wondered if the brunette would want to date the guy again. Putting on his top hat, the instructor said that he also had one request. The brown-haired man asked the woman to let him know if she found out where Leslie was. Making a wide gesture with his hand, the guy promised to pay her as much as she wanted. He left without saying goodbye. When the door clicked shut, the woman sighed heavily and took a small mug of tea from the table. She realized that the instructor had not noticed her earring and assumed that he was unaware of the artifact's abilities. Madame poured the rest of the tea on the earring and placed it in the ground. She remembered that she had given the second one to Leslie so that she could disguise herself. Fortunately, the woman remembered that she was the only one who knew about the abilities of the artifact. Looking closely at the flower pot where the earring lay, the brunette remembered that with the help of the jewelry, it was possible to track the location of the second earring. The brunette buried the jewel, deciding that she would take this secret with her to the grave. Madame realized that her student had clearly learned the lesson that it was better to betray than to be betrayed. With a smile on his face, the blonde watched his beloved sleep. He wondered why she drew a line between them if she eventually crossed it herself. The guy felt a little ashamed that he couldn't hold back in the end. Leslie snored rhythmically in the soft bed. The blonde remembered that at first she refused his touch, and then kissed her whenever she wanted. Khalid realized that this was what brought them closer. Her smile, touch kisses made his heart skip a beat. When the blonde met her with a joyful smile, it seemed to him that the whole world froze. The girl's languid sighs seemed incredibly sweet to him. The brunette was the one with whom the blonde's heart began to beat faster. Khalid realized that the actress did not remember him and did not trust him completely. The guy was disappointed that she didn't remember how their story began. The little girl asked him to come back and pick her up in 10 years. The brunette's face was beaming with smiles. The words spoken that day were both his salvation and his curse. The door creaked open. Khalid asked coldly what had happened. The assistant apologized for the intrusion and said that there was a matter requiring His Highness's attention. The prince, alarmed, wondered if this had anything to do with the dungeon. Simon said that the prisoner had committed suicide. The blonde's body shuddered involuntarily and he jumped up abruptly and headed for the exit. Khalid asked the blonde to tell him everything on the way. When the blonde left, Leslie began to be tormented by nightmares again. The girl, shaking all over, screamed out fragments of phrases, and there was cold sweat on her face. In the nightmare, the brown-haired man leaned over the little girl, noticing that she had practically mastered the basics. The guy asked to remember this always, especially on a mission. The curator explained that this technique will lure any target into a trap. Shaitan recalled that the victim felt as if a special connection was being established between them, and asked to rehearse again. At that moment, Leslie realized that she needed to escape as soon as possible. Having comfortably sat down on a chair, the guy noticed that she was still hesitating. The curator asked if he had taught her this. The blonde asked sternly how the incident had happened. Simon lowered his eyes and admitted that the captive had bitten off her tongue. Khalid turned around and angrily asked what fool had pulled out the gag. The blonde man closed his eyes and said that it happened when the guards were drinking delicious wine. The workers were sincerely happy that day, because they couldn't remember the last time they drank alcohol. The guards were allowed to drink in honor of the ceremony. The red-haired guy asked his colleagues to be quiet, explaining that if they were caught, their pay would be cut. The brunette was indignant at the injustice, since they were the only ones who were forbidden to drink. A strange sound was heard behind the guards. Looking back, the girl could not understand what had happened to the captive. The red-haired guy said that the captive was very sick and that it was a bad sign. The guard ran up to her and said that they needed to take out the gag, since the captive needed air. The brunette explained that it would be the end for them if she died before they finished the interrogation. The blonde smirked as she looked at her tormentors. The prince frowned, suggesting that returning home for the first time in 2 years had lifted someone's spirits. Simon looked down and asked for forgiveness for not being able to keep track of this. The assistant sighed heavily and promised that next time something like this would not happen. Putting his hand on the boy's shoulder, the blonde asked him to calm down. Khalid explained that he knew better than anyone how much attention he paid to the little things. The prince reminded the boy that it was not his fault. The blonde gritted his teeth and said that the captive clearly had an accomplice. Khalid said that there was no point in interrogating the crew because they were too drunk. The blonde realized that he could not lock them up because not everyone was guilty of the incident that had occurred. Simon informed His Highness that none of the guards were guilty. Approaching the guys, San explained that the guards were to blame because they were unable to control themselves and properly perform their duties. The blonde noticed that the guard had not even touched the alcohol. San said that they would follow His Highness's orders and pay for their mistake. Placing his hand on the boy's head, the prince asked if he wanted him to torture all those who had served him all these years because of one spy. Khalid asked if they thought he was capable of such a thing. His Highness said that they should concentrate on finding evidence. Approaching the camera, the guy remembered that she probably had an accomplice who first tried to help her escape. The blonde did not understand why she decided to commit suicide. The blonde asked him if he thought that someone had killed the girl. The guy coldly replied that it had happened as soon as they had crossed the border. Khalid asked why at that moment. Simon looked down and assumed that the traitor wanted mana. The blonde was sure that if the traitors had used magic, they would have left traces. The prince said that they needed to focus on finding clues. The blonde said that he and San would start searching right away. The guys suggested that His Highness continue to rest with the princess. Tu explained that after crossing the border, he could not rest peacefully. The assistant suggested that His Highness was worried about the mutants. The prince reminded that he was the only one with a full-fledged Terra. The blonde said that at the moment it would be better if he remained on guard. Looking at his small Teru, Simon agreed with His Highness's judgment. The brown-haired man awkwardly said that some people didn't have any magical animal at all. The blonde asked to leave the guard of the dungeon to Lana. The prince was sure that she was eager to do something. Smiling, Simon suggested that the girl would be perfect for this job. The guard looked down, doubting that this would stop the girl from causing trouble. The blonde said that there was something else he had to say. Taking his faithful servant by the cheek, the blonde pulled it sharply. Khalid ordered him to be on guard, because it was unacceptable for something like this to happen again. Rubbing his reddened cheek, the blonde realized that His Highness was still angry. The wind with the night coolness rushed into the girl's cabin. Khalid's amber eyes sparkled with rage. Getting out of bed, the girl said that the master would be pleased. Stroking her belly, the blonde hoped that the death of her baby's aunt was not in vain. More than a week had passed since the ship had crossed the border. Leslie sat on the deck enjoying a cup of aromatic hot drink. The girl enjoyed the sun, the light sea breeze, and the gentle sound of the waves. The weather was perfect almost the entire week. While in the cabin, she didn't have to worry about the weather since everyone could now use magic. The brunette had no idea that magic could be used to repair or clean a room. The actress was delighted that Khalid's room began to look completely different. Simon bowed and asked if Her Highness was ready for new language lessons. Turning around, the girl answered positively. The sea breeze played like a light wind in her luxurious hair. The brunette listened attentively to the guy and wrote down all the important information. Simon said that fire and earth, water and air were the 4 main elements. Even with one element, people had different abilities. The actress listened carefully to each word paired and wrote it down on sheets of paper. Leslie asked if he had water magic and could heal others. The blonde nodded approvingly, confirming that Her Highness was absolutely right. The advisor was incredibly happy that he was able to teach the girl the basics of their culture. With a radiant smile, the brunette remembered that Terra is born in the image and likeness of her master. Watching the small snake, the princess assumed that this appearance could be due to the fact that Simon was very calm. The girl was delighted by how cute Terra was. The brunette muttered that it was very convenient. The assistant asked her in surprise what she meant. The girl only replied that it didn't matter. Leslie reminded him that he said that magic cannot be used in Eldon. The brunette asked what the reason for this ban was. Simon explained that this was done to maintain the balance of the earth. The blonde reminded that magic ceased to exist on the central continent, but remained in Irene. The advisor explained that it had been decided by someone. Seeing the misunderstanding in the girl's eyes, the blonde decided to tell everything about the creatures. Simon reminded that the girl had already seen one of them. Blannon explained that the dragon guarded the borders of the lands. The second guardian was a tree that took root throughout the world. And the third was the witch of the northern lands. And the fourth, the holy green, was hidden in a palace overgrown with thorn bushes. The blonde explained that magical creatures were chosen to maintain the balance of the lands. The guardians stripped the central continent of magic. A strict ban on the spread of magic outside of Iran was introduced on Earth. People were allowed to cross the border, provided that they did not use magic. Turning around, the brunette suggested that Khalid was an amazing person, since he was able to save the container abroad. Simon enthusiastically said that even the prince's tiger was unusual. The girl was surprised by this phrase, since tigers were not commonplace anyway. Khalid did not immediately say that he could put his Terra to sleep. The big cat had been scaring the hell out of the girl all this time. Terra got up from her soft bed and yawned sweetly. The assistant told her that the prince had mastered the element of wind. The girl found this a little strange, because she was sure that the earth suited the prince much better. The brunette saw him as serious, hot and majestically towering over everyone, like a scorching sun in an endless desert.